no. You won't believe what happened just Saturday, almost a week ago. The next Jinny Beyer glue came out, and I totally forgot that it was the first Saturday of August. The summer has just flown by. I'm not complaining, I won't mind when the heat leaves too, but I wasn't ready for it yet. So I had to get busy fast. I had to sew the rest of last month's July's pieces. So I have 6 of these done, 6 of these funny looking pieces done, and then my 4 triangles sewn. So that's done. Now I can start on this month. When I realized what day it was, because I got the notification that Jinny Beyer's newsletter was in the mail, I quickly went to the site and printed out this month's directions. Looks pretty easy too. Now I like to sew my Jinny Beyer by hand if possible, but I'm not a purist. If I don't have time, I'll sew it by machine. But I do enjoy sitting there relaxing and sewing by hand. Part of this month, I know I'll sew by hand because we have the dreaded Y seams. Now, they're not that bad, but I always say if you're afraid of them or you've had trouble with them in the past, sew them by hand. At least baste them by hand, then go over them by machine. But I will show you today. I'm going to show you how to do them by machine. And then when I get all mine done, I'll show you what it looks like. We do have a member, Sonia, who is amazing, that already has hers done. And she is a machine quilter, piecer, and good for her. And then you have Akko and I who Akko does it by hand. I try to, but I'm kind of in the middle. We make a perfect trio. So we'll see how we do. But the first thing I'm going to do is take and put these 3 triangles together. So I'm going to do one set by machine, and the rest I prefer to do by hand, but I'll show you how to do it by machine. And then I'll just show you again how I sew by hand. So let's get started. The first thing I do is take all of my template M pieces, put the template centered on top, and then with tailor's chalk, this is the easy part because you rub tailor's chalk across the hole, and then it very easily, let me give you a close-up so you'll see. Okay, so you can see once you put this on and you rub the tailor's chalk on the hole, it easily deposits the beautiful dots that are very easy to follow. So I just quickly put this on, rub tailor's chalk. My tailor's chalk broke, so I'm just using a piece of it, but guess what? It works, even if it's just a tiny piece. Alright, so I have that one marked. Now just 3 more to mark. Now you might notice that these pieces look a little different than what you would expect. And that's because these are for the center block. And the center block is using a different color background anyway. And I thought I kind of wanted something fancier. So, to set that center block off, because there's a center block and then all the other blocks kind of circle around it. Whoops, let me get that on there real good. Okay, here we go. But there's a center block. I'll show you right here. There's a center block, and then all these are in a circle. So I think it's a great idea to have the center block just a little different. And I think it would be very pretty. And something different. We'll see. If I don't like it, I can always undo it. Now this block is a little bit big. Anytime you notice something like this, something's a little off, take the time to trim it to size. because, you know, sometimes when you're cutting, who knows, something distracted you and you weren't cutting as cleanly as you should have been. So you can always fix it. And this would be a good time if you cut it too small to make another one, make it larger. Now, one thing I did, even though I've got different points on all of these template M triangles, I like the way, okay, last one done. Okay, I like the way, if you look in this pattern, see how the centers right here have a border around them. And I wanted to keep that look right there with the center with the border right there. So what I did is I sewed this fabric onto the border print. And that way I've got the best of both. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is back this out and bring it down to my sewing machine. I want to thank Mark again for making me such an awesome camera mount so that I can move you right in to see what I'm doing. So now what I'm going to do is take two of these, put them together, matching the dot and matching the border print. In fact, it's even more important to match the border print than the dot, because once you sew these, you want these to open up and have the border prints right there matching. So I'm going to put a pin nice and close. Now let me sew this one and see how it comes out. So a scant quarter of an inch. A scant quarter of an inch means 1 thread width less than the 1/4 inch. You can always go back and make the seam a little touch bigger if I feel like it needs to. But 1 thread is really important on some of these tight angles to get a good fit. And that's just 1 thread's width less. And there we go. See how those border prints? Now, you know, my others were centered so that the corner, in fact, let me quickly show you these two when they're put together. This may be one thing that I didn't count on, so let me put these together really quickly. Okay, let me try sewing this one. Sometimes it's really hard to get a point because the needle wants to drag the teeny tiny tip of fabric into the hole with it. Okay, let me see. Okay, let me open this one. All right, see how this comes together. Since it was cut to center the design, this also was centered. So I've got to decide if that bothers me or not. I maybe should have made sure that I put 2 pieces together. And so this may bother me a bit too much. I'll have to check and see. Okay, now I'll put these 2 together. And I can always fix it. It's just a little bit of fabric in my time. And you know what? I've got plenty of both. Alright, let's see now. And here's this center. I'm not sure it really bothers me. So for now, I'm going to leave it as it is. But mainly, I did a very good job of meeting my borders. And that's what you want. Alright, so that part is done. And then what you're going to do, once that part is done, is you're going to take this piece right here and one of your step 2A units, and you're going to place this piece in here at this funny angle. Now that's going to look odd to you, but it's okay. Just trust me. Make sure you match the dots and you match the seam allowances. And I'm going to go ahead and trim. I'm going to trim these seam allowances, grade them down to about 1/8 of an inch, because a lot of points are going to be coming together. In fact, I'll trim both of these as well, down to 1/8 of an inch. And that way you'll end up with not such a heavy intersection. Those intersections can be hard to quilt and cause little humpy bump as you go over them. And I'm going to do the same thing for trimming these, because I know eventually I'll have 6 points coming together here. Alright, nice little things to do to keep everything easy to work with. Alright, so I've got this piece right here, and I'm going to set it up just like this with these two sides connected. This one will float free for now, don't worry. And I'll match the dots, match the dots, match the dots, and pin. And come in here, oops, making sure, okay. And I'm going to sew with this the center piece M, template M pieces. I'm going to sew with that up so I can get it just a few hairs width shy, 2 hairs width shy of this border edge. Everything else she's been doing says leave a little bit of that black border. Gives it a nice sharp touch. So I'm going to come in here, and instead of worrying about 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to be on 2 threads width past the edge of the border. And I'm sewing it nice and slow because it's quicker to sew more slowly and not have to rip out. Alright. So here it is. Let me take out the pin and show you. Okay, see how I've done that? Now I stopped 1/4 of an inch before the turn so that I can easily take the fabric. And see, because I have extra, it didn't come onto this fabric, I can then kind of turn it to line up with this side. Alright, now I sew from the dot where I just turned down to 1/4 of an inch before the end here. Now I got a little bit off the line, so I'm going to go back and try to do it one more time. Luckily, it's going to be within the seam allowance, so I won't have to take out any stitches. Alright, let's see how this looks. Alright, that looks great. And you see how easy that was? And it lays nice and flat. And I'm going to get my iron heated up. It's important when you press to press these seams out. They kind of naturally want to do that anyway. And then right here where all these seams come together, I'm going to give the fabric a little trim. And I do it with my scissors kind of sideways, because by tilting my scissors, you get an automatic grading. That's wonderful. Alright, that looks really good. So far, that wasn't too bad. Now, I'm going to do the next part, which is put these next three pieces together. Matching the dots, but mainly matching these border edges. Match those border edges. Okay, sew it at just shy, just one thread shy of a 1/4 inch, which would make it a scant 1/4 inch. Right on down. Okay, let's see if this lined up good. Very good. And you know what? I don't think anyone's going to notice that this isn't an exact mirror in the corner. Now let me do my trimming, because remember, these are all going to come meet together. So what I do is it's trimmed at an angle, 1/8 of an inch on up to meet the 1/4 of an inch. So now I need to put one more piece beside it. So, matching the dots, matching mostly that border line, because these are all mirror images. One scant inch, one scant 1/4 seam allowance. There, I've got another beautiful intersection. So I'm going to take and trim this down at 1/8 of an inch. Trim a little bit of this. Now let me press this really quickly. All right. So now I place this the exact same way. So I line up these two edges and let this edge be free. All right. And don't forget, leave this piece up so you can sew just a couple threads past into the black here. So we want a little black border to show. Really gives it a nice little pop. Okay. So just 2 threads away from the border into the black little edge. And I sew nice and slowly. Only a little seam, so it doesn't take long to sew it slowly. Oh, that's nice. And you see where you end up with a little black line in between the 2 edges. And this is the magic of Jinny Beyer, because with that little black edge, you get just that little bit more of definition. And it's free. It wasn't an extra step because it was already there to begin with. You just make sure to leave it showing. Talk about easy and fun. So now I make sure that I can twist, gently pull open the fabric so I can head in the next direction. Again, sewing 2 threads widths inside to the right of that border, so I'll have a little bit of black background showing. All right. Very good. Very good. So now let me press this. Oh, and don't forget, take off any excess from these seams where these 2 came together. They're not needed. It'll make it easier to have this lay down, and much easier to, see, there are my little hand stitches, but it'll make it so much easier to quilt later. Sonny, these wanted to be pressed to the outside, but this one is definitely wanting to be pressed towards the inside, towards the smaller piece. I wonder. Let me see if this one will let me do that. If it doesn't want to, that's okay. Alright, so now I have these two pieces. And what I'm going to do with these two pieces is put them together like this. Now this is going to be tricky because I have to get these center seams to match up. And it looks like that's not going to work. But don't forget, there's a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So if I come up 1/4 and 1/4, I bet you they'll match perfectly. And this is a different inside look. But I'm going to see what happens. The worst that can happen, I take it apart and do it the way it was written. Alright, so I come in here and I line up the border. Lining up that border is critical. Line the border, pin it very good. When I pin through twice so that it can't rack. So I put the pin in and out twice. Then I'm going to come up to the center here, and if you pull this back 1/4 of an inch and match it up with there, you'll see it matches very well, just like I was hoping. And I'm going to put this one through twice. Just helps keep it from wrenching around, and everything you can do to have this turn out to be more perfect is exactly what you want to do. So I line the borders up on this side. So now I'm just going to sew a straight line. I can do that. Alright. So come in and sew a scant 1/4 of an inch. And I know by now you know what that means. Very carefully, slowly, sewing right across. Very good. Let's see. Let's see if I did a good job. If not, I'll take them out and do it again. Let's see. Aha! It looks pretty good to me. What do you think? I think that's pretty good. Now I'll press it, and I'm going to grade it just a touch. Grading is something I learned from clothes making, and it's where you make one of the seams a little shorter than the one on the other side. And that way when they lay over together, it just helps smooth that joined edge. It's less of a bump for where if the seams were allowed to be the same length. So grading is a good thing for quilting as well. So I cut this down nice and short, then I leave the other seam just a touch longer. And see how you can see the back right side of the fabric, and you can see where the seam allowance is here? That's called grading, and that's going to help when these lay down, keep from having just big lump. There it is. So now what it wants me to do is take my last two pieces, and here we go with a sort of Y seam, but it's not a bad one. She really did a very good job. These weren't bad seams, so this is going to work, and it's not that complicated. And when I finish all of these, I'll have all 6 star centers done. Isn't that beautiful? So now what I'm going to do, the main thing with any kind of Y seam, whether it's a modified Y seam or true sharp Y seam, is to do one side at a time. Don't try to do a continuous line. No matter how carefully you try, it won't work. So we're going to do this first seam. We've got 3 separate seams to do. So we're going to put this first seam up, and here we go. Don't forget, grade. Turn your scissors sideways. It'll leave it one slightly longer than the other. right like this. Turn your scissors sideways and trim. There you go. Nice trim. Now, what we're going to do is match this seam up with this. And then we'll put a pin in. Then we'll match the dots on this point. Make sure you've matched your dots and put a pin. Alright, now let's sew them, and I'll hold the middle. I've got the two important parts pinned. It keeps wanting to pull that point in. This is where I could use my stiletto. I'm going to use a bamboo stiletto just because if I hit it with the needle, I'm less likely to hurt the machine. Okay, so there, I think you can see better this way. And I just take and use that stiletto to push my fabric right under. Okay. And I always like to give it a couple extra stitches beyond the stopping point, because it gives it a good lock stitch, and then when you're messing with it, it won't open up, because I hate it when my stitches try to open up. And you know, sometimes when you're cranking them around, you're putting a little stress on that intersection, and I don't like my stitches coming loose. So I'll show you again when I get down to this end. Alright, here I go. When I get down to that edge right there, I just hold the fabric tight. So I do about 3 stitches in place, and that locks it. Alright, let's see how this one looks. That looks perfect. What do you think? See, this is not hard. So many people, they have heard it's the worst. It's like, you know, oh, my childbirth was so horrible. Well, then you have someone else who said it was a breeze. No problem. Mine were all very easy. That's because I had C-sections. So now we pin it right here. And I'm going to pin it twice so that it doesn't wobble. Then I'll come out here and pin it out at this edge. And then start right here from where I stopped. Let's see. Yep, start right where I stopped, because it's a different line. It's a different plane line. Oops, I'm going to trim this right here, removing any bulk. Important. And here we go. Just stitch nice and straight down here. All right. Now let's see how this came out. Remove my pins. That is beautiful. I'm going to press it real quick. I'll be right back. I'm going to grade these outer edges too. Alright, here is 3/4 of my star done, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I gotta tell you, I love this center. Alright, let me get this. Let me grade my seams. All right. So now I'm going to place this right in here. Let me flip it the right sides together. Start my first side. Put a pin in. Run the edge out. Put a pin in. Alright, let me grade this seam before it's so much easier to grade before you sew together. Alright, now okay, now I'm going, and I'm going to run right up to this point right here. Here we go. Okay, do a couple locking stitches, stop at that point, take my pins out, looks very good. Now I'm going to go right to the middle here, and pin it on this side. Alright, now slip this under. Stitch on across. Locking stitches and stop. Looks excellent. Then now turn it. And trust me, there is no way to do it without doing it as 3 separate seams. I have tried, and I end up turning it into a baseball cap because it puffs up in the middle. Start where I finished sewing, right here, and continue to stitch. Take these pins out. Oh, what a gorgeous block. Let me press, I'll be right back. Here is the block. Let me pull it up so you can see. I think it is beautiful. Now I have 5 more of these to go. And you notice, I dressed appropriately. I actually did pick it out because I knew the colors in this. But here I go. It only took a few minutes for the assembling of these pieces. So, isn't that pretty? So, 6 more blocks to go. And then I'll wait until the first weekend in September. I am loving this Jinny Beyer Block of the Month Stellaris. There's still time if you hurry up and go to JinnyBeyer.com, sign up for her newsletter, buy a kit, and get busy. It is a lot of fun, and I would love for you to share in this joy. This is going to be a gorgeous one, isn't it? I like this. It looks like a blue sapphire. Ooh, I do like that. And as you can tell, sapphire is my favorite stone. So, take good care. Bye-bye.